Say no to a contactless bank card and a cashless society. Deal in cash as much as possible. Why should your bank know exactly what you spend your money on? If we lose our cash option, we will be at the mercy of bank charges. Going abroad using a card is now ridiculously expensive. The government wants you to use bank cards as much as possible so they can keep an eye on you and monitoring your every transaction down to the last penny. It's all a part of the bigger picture of the ultimate end game, a full-spectrum takeover of society with every facet of our lives controlled via the internet by a soulless intangible power. You will learn to love your servitude if you don't already. Search Google for an article called "Contactless Card Loophole Allows Crooks to Carry on Spending Even After Victims Report Theft." These days, banks and credit card issuers might like to try to tell us that the future lies in the cashless society, in which we will make even the smallest purchases, such as a cup of coffee or a daily newspaper, by card, but I don't want anything to do with it. If cash were to disappear, we would find us at the mercy of the banks and their infernal transaction fee. By using plastic cards, people can lose track of how much money they actually have, and they spend money they do not have, giving an overdraft that they cannot pay off. If I am buying a week's grocery shopping, or I am buying an airline ticket over the internet, true, I am quite happy to pay using my debit card because it is by far the most efficient way of making the transaction. But when I hear about banks and payment companies such as Visa and MasterCard doing their best to eliminate cash from our lives, I am deeply cynical about their motives. In a cashless society, central banks would find it easier to enforce their monetary policies. A cashless system affects people's privacy, since it leaves behind an electronic trail. Personal data such as buying habits can be accessed by governments, employers, and marketers. Some people do not trust politicians who tell everyone that by snooping in merchants' databases they will succeed in protecting the privacy of consumers. Instead, they believe that the politicians will use the data for their own political purposes, collecting taxes, attempting to reduce national healthcare costs, getting re-elected, etc. Fear of being tracked in detail is not groundless. For example, card associations provide services that allow banks to more precisely analyze cardholders' buying patterns and target sales and promotions to customers. I fear they are trying to engineer a future world where we can never buy or sell anything without using their services. Contactless cards are the most recent innovation as part of this insidious revolution. They contain a tiny radio receiver which, when waved within a couple of inches of a ticket machine or terminal at a shop checkout, can be used to make a payment instead of the buyer having to tap in a PIN number. It isn't hard to imagine the power that the banks would wield if we lost the option of paying for items in cash and of keeping our savings in a hidey hole at home. They would use it as an excuse to ditch free banking in an instant. All kinds of charges would spring up for the simple reason it would be impossible for anyone to avoid them. Of course, banking isn't really free, even now. While most current account holders don't pay a fee whenever they buy something with a debit card, retailers are paying for the service. They must pay to hire the terminals on which payments are made and a percentage charge on the transaction. While I am happy to use my debit card when it suits me, I am going to resist being bullied into using it every time. But if we want to avoid being ripped off by banks and card issuers, it is vital that we fight for the right to pay in cash. Some people think that contactless cards are a godsend. Using them speeds up queues, and if you had cash you'd have to queue to buy a ticket, then use the ticket for transport rather than just flash the card. In shops and busy bars they're convenient. But remember that cash is still the best way to pay if we are to keep our freedom. I know a lady from Japan who spends the summer there every year with her husband and kids. People there are very skeptical about credit cards and credit card companies and use cash for everything. Pay bills by cash at the convenience store, pay for your Amazon order or supermarket shopping in cash upon delivery, and even your rent or mortgage can be paid by cash if you want. It is not merely drug dealers or other criminals who are concerned with the privacy afforded by cash transactions. Others are worried about the detailed record of their transactions left by non-cash transactions. Non-cash transactions substantially jeopardize privacy, which is lost with the current electronic credit, debit, and smart cards. For example, it gives the opportunity for strangers to accumulate and swap portfolios of information evidencing a number of things that most persons would care to remain private, including, but not limited to, what videos or games a person rents at the video store, what books are purchased in bookstores, or what is otherwise purchased at any store or on the internet. Sweden leads the race to become cashless society. Swedes are blazing a trail in Europe, with banks, buses, street vendors, and even churches expecting plastic or virtual payment. In Sweden, a country on the front lines of cash elimination, homeless people carry credit card readers supplied by a charity, and now people can't get away. When they say, "I don't have change," the beggar tells them they can pay with card, or even by SMS. Governments and their agencies love electronic transactions. Without cash, it's much harder to hide money from the taxman. The police and government agencies, like the NSA, love the trackable records that cashless payments leave behind. The promise is that banning cash would end black markets, but for honest citizens, the end of paper cash brings many unsettling downsides. Credit card transactions are already trackable, and electronic cash could bring that lack of anonymity to every single transaction you make. When all our payment transactions are tracked, it creates a trove of data we have no control over. It's easy to imagine a daring divorce lawyer or a government agent trying to gain access to our financial history to try to build a story about who we are. The rich may be better equipped to buy themselves privacy, setting up corporate entities for their transaction. A cashless society would certainly give governments unprecedented access to information and power over citizens. Currently, we have little evidence to indicate that governments will refrain from using this power. On the contrary, the US government is already using its snooping prowess and big data manipulation in some frightening ways. Get rid of our cash and we are another step closer to total control. Don't let them do it. The mark of the beast will soon be upon us. Resist, use cash, and not cards. The cashless society is all about your data, taxation, and control over every aspect of your life. When it becomes law, yes, you will have to do this and your market stalls and small business will go under and all purchasing will go to globalist supermarkets. It will be tax and fine. Keep using cash. You will not be able to buy without the mark and banks will be very powerful.